Hello world. My name is Kenzie Dodds and I'm going to take you on a quick tour of how you can get Angular Formally, the project, set up locally on your machine so you can start contributing to the Angular Formally project. The first thing that we're going to do is we'll go to github.com/formally.js/Angular Formally. Make sure you have an account, and then you'll want to fork the repository. I'll go ahead and actually I'm going to pause really quick. So you hit the fork button, you go to, you choose what org to fork it in. I'm going to fork it in myself. And as soon as that's finished, you'll have this HTTPS URL that you can use to clone. And so when you set up GitHub, if you haven't really had much experience with this, that's totally okay. You'll need to Google what you need to do to get GitHub set up so you can start committing to your own repositories. But once you have that all set up, then you can just take this HTTPS clone or URL, and you'll need to open up your Git bash or your terminal. So if you're on a Windows machine, you'll want to use whatever it is that you use to use Git. And if you don't know Git, then you'll need to go research that first. So I'm going to just go to my desktop. You might go to like your developer folder or something, and you'll say git clone and then paste that URL. And oh goodness gracious, 1 second. You Apple. Okay, so we'll say git clone, paste that URL, and we're cloning it into a brand new folder called Angular Formally. This should only take a moment, and then you'll change directory into Angular Formally. And if you look at the file system, you'll have a bunch of things in here. All that you need to do to get things set up is run npm, and this also the expectation is that you have Node and npm installed. There isn't a particular version of Node that you should have installed. You should probably have at least version 0.12. I've seen that there are problems with 0.10, so make sure that you have the latest or a reasonably recent version of Node installed, and npm. And so then you'll run npm I or npm install, and this will look in our package.json, install all of the dependencies and dev dependencies, and this will take a moment, so I'm going to pause this. Okay, so while this is wrapping up, I'm just going to explain a couple of things about our contributing guidelines. And so if you go to the repository, you'll see this contributing.md folder. In here, I actually do have a playlist of some videos that I've already recorded. So there's one in particular about pull requests. This video is basically going to override that video. And by the time you see this video, it's probably going to be gone because some things have changed slightly. Yeah, basically, before you add any new functionality, make sure that there's an issue for it that I have labeled intent to implement. Otherwise, I may not merge your pull request for various reasons, not just because it's bad code or anything, but because it is potentially something I feel like is out of scope for the project or various other things. That's very interesting. Yeah, just make sure that there's an issue for what it is that you're trying to implement. And then there are a couple of basic things. So you want to make sure that you follow the existing styles, and there are some mechanisms that we use to ensure that you do. You don't actually need to document your changes, so I should probably remove that because the README no longer is where we document. And having an example on the website is really handy as well. And there's a video that explains how to create an example on this playlist right here. So you can see that. So we run npm install, then we run npm start. And if you're on a Windows machine, this actually should work for you now, hopefully. So here we are, we'll run, we have everything installed. So now we'll run npm start. And this should now start Angular Formally, or start the test. Basically, it just runs npm run test watch. And this will start Karma, recording coverage, and in the node environment of test. And all of the tests should run. You should have Firefox pop open. If you don't have Firefox installed, that's going to be a problem, so you'll need to have Firefox installed to do that. And so if you have a problem with that, you can actually run npm run test debug, I think, and that will open up Chrome. So if Chrome is your jelly, then jump on that. So once you have that going, any changes that you make are going to rerun the tests automatically, so you can make sure that you're not breaking any of the tests. And all of the code is written in ES6, and so you can leverage lots of the coolness of ES6. And once you're all finished writing all of your tests and your code, and we do have some checks to make sure that that your code is tested. But once you finish with all of that, then you'll add the source directory. I don't think that you would have any reason to commit anything anywhere other than the source directory. And so if we run, here I'll open up my favorite editor recently, Vim. I'll explain kind of the directory structure. So we're building our project with Webpack, and so you'll see everything is using ES6 modules, and Babel transpiler is transpiling that down to CommonJS, and then Webpack consumes those CommonJS modules to actually build everything. So in our regular library build, the entry point is this index.js, and that simply imports index common. Whoops. And here we do all the imports of all the other things that are needed in the project. We create the module name, and that's what we actually export from the library, so people can import our module and put it directly in their dependencies. And then, we add all those different things to our module. And so this is basically like the key to everything. One thing to note is that we don't have a test directory. All of the tests live right next to where the thing that they're testing lives. And so we have this index.test that basically does the same thing, except it brings things in for the tests. And it doesn't actually add it to a module because it's just like running those files. So that's how the tests and the different pieces are all put together. So we have things separated here. Angular fix is only here because some versions of Angular don't export the module properly. And so if you need to import Angular, what you're going to need to do is import Angular fix instead. And you'll see there are a couple places that we do that. Like, for example, right here, import Angular from Angular fix. So you don't need to worry about that, or you shouldn't. And I think that's pretty much it. From here, you should be able to figure out what to do with the specific task that you're looking for. As far as the tests go, the bulk of the tests live in directives in either the formally field. Thank you, Mac. Restart in an hour, I guess. So it should be the formally field or in formally form. That's where most of the tests live. And actually, it's kind of a toss-up whether it belongs in formally field or formally form. I'm sorry about that. Basically, I guess if it's something in the formally field file that you're trying to cover, then that's where it should go, is in formally field. But if it's something in the formally form JS, then that's probably where it should go. But formally field actually just renders a formally form to do the testing. And so, actually, maybe I could show you really quickly how most of the tests work. Here at the very bottom of the file, we have this compile and digest function. And so in most of our tests, we just set up a little bit of state in before the it statement, or inside the it statement, and then we run this compile and digest, which will set a bunch of variables that are in the root scope for us, and then we can make assertions off of some of those variables, like field and different things. And so that's kind of the basics of how that works, and hopefully that's helpful to you. We also have this test utils that you might want to take a look at as well. So that's that. So when you're finished making your change, throughout the whole process, as you're adding lines and whatever, if you decide like, okay, I'm going to add this console.log hello world in our project, we say, hey, we don't want to have console.logs, and so you should get, actually, sorry, in tests it's technically okay to have console.log. So let me find another different file. So here we'll say console.log hi. So now you get this little notification that says the build is broken, and that is, oh my goodness, yeah, that is because we have this ESLint error. So if you're not familiar with ESLint, it's similar to JSHint or JSLint, but it's much more powerful, configurable, awesomer. And here it's saying, hey, unexpected console statement, you can't have a console.log in your code. And so as you're coding, it's okay to break things, whatever, but before you commit, you need to make sure that those things are no longer broken. And if you try to commit, it's going to scream at you saying, hey, you can't do this. You need to fix that before you can actually commit. And the way that works is with a pre-commit hook. So there are actually a couple of things that we enforce when you commit code, and I'm going to show those to you now. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll just add a comment here. This is super duper awesome, and we'll just save that there. So now we've made a change, but the build is successful. Everything should be good. So once you're finished and all of the tests are passing, and for some reason recently I've had to bring up Firefox while this is running to get it to run fast. I thought that was only a Chrome thing, but it looks like Firefox has done that recently too, so I don't know what to do about that, which is super dumb. But so once everything's good, then you can run git status to see, oh, I've got, oh my goodness, where did all these come from? Yeah, so don't commit anything in the other directory. That should not have happened, but we'll go to the source directory. So we'll say git add src. And now if we look at our git status, it should only have this file staged. And so now normally what you'd run is git commit message like foobar is awesome, but that's not how you commit code in Angular formally. We have a very strict commit convention, and this is because we automate our whole release process. And if you want to learn more about that, I have an Egghead series on how to create an open source library, and I leverage those same lessons in Angular formally. So instead of git commit, we're going to actually run an npm script. So npm, oh, and by the way, I should say that all of the npm scripts, when you say npm run, they all live in the package.json file under scripts here. And so you can run npm run any of these and they should all work. So we'll run npm run commit is one of the scripts, and this is going to take us through a prompt so that we can get things committed properly. So we're going to say this is documentation only change on formally field, and adding cool doc thing, and a longer thing. This should not be pushed because it isn't real. And if there's any issues, like we'd say we're closing number 502. And or you could, if you're not actually closing it, you could just say like reference number whatever, and then it's going to spin. Hopefully actually commitIsIn has been updated, and I'll update commitIsIn here in a second, and you should be seeing some output from our git commit hooks. But you can see right now it actually built Angular formally. Another Firefox window popped up and ran all the tests, and then we checked our coverage. So yeah, basically we run linting to make sure that you don't have any problems with your code, and then we run the tests, and then we check that the coverage is to our standard so that you didn't add code without covering it. And once that's all done, if everything's good, then we can say, oh, and one other thing actually, incidentally, as part of that whole git hook, is we also check that the commit message that you're about to commit with is correct. So now if you use npm run commit, then you're going to have the right commit message and everything will be dandy. So if we look at the git log, we'll see that commit looks like this. So it's docs is what I chose, the scope is formally field, and the subject is add cool doc thing. And then this is a description, and then these are any referenced issues here. And if you have a breaking change, you want to do breaking change in all caps and explain what the breaking change is. And we generate our change log based off of these commit messages, so be aware of that. Pretty much the only thing that goes into the change log is this subject, and anything in the breaking changes, anything that you say are breaking changes will go in there as well. So that is that, and then you'll go ahead and push. So I'll say git push u to track my upstream origin master. And remember, I'm pointing to my fork, so I'm not actually pushing this up to the library. So now if I refresh here, it should say adding cool doc thing. So I can click on this. It says this branch is one commit ahead of JS Formally master, or Formally JS master. So I can hit pull request, or alternatively, you can go to Angular Formally. You can click this green button and say compare across forks. You'll choose your fork and compare master, or if you made a branch, you'd compare that branch, and then it'll show that additional commit, and you can create a pull request off of that. You can change this if you like to, and then you hit create pull request. And the first thing that's going to happen after just a moment is it's going to start a CI build on Travis. So we can open that up, and yeah, it'll start running that CI build. So it'll run the test, it'll run the linting. If any of those things, and it'll run the code coverage to reporting. So if any of those things fail, then we're going to have a problem, and it's not a big deal. We'll iterate on it, and everything will be just fine. But yeah, that's basically the process of contributing to Angular Formally. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that was pertinent, but I don't think so. One thing for sure is, well, yeah, I think that you have everything that you need to know for for what you need to know. So it looks like the build is running just fine. Oh, that runs as part of npm install. I gotta look at that. But yeah, thank you for your contributions. I really appreciate it, and hope that you enjoy contributing to Angular Formally.